Why you feel empty, even when your life looks fine. It's a Sunday evening. The apartment is clean. There's food in the fridge. You finished the work you needed to finish. Nobody is sick. Nobody is fighting. By any reasonable measure, things are fine. And yet, there's something sitting in your chest that you can't name. Not sadness, not anxiety, just a kind of flatness, like someone turned the color down on everything by about 20%. You scroll through your phone, you put it down, you pick it up again, you think about texting someone, and then don't. You sit there in the quiet and you think, this can't be it. But here's what makes it stranger. This feeling doesn't visit people whose lives are falling apart. It visits people whose lives are going well, people who did the work, got the degree, landed the job, checked the boxes, people who have nothing obvious to complain about, and feel somehow worse for it. Psychologists have been circling this for decades, and what they've found is not comforting. Because the emptiness you feel isn't a sign that something went wrong. It's a sign that everything went exactly according to plan. In 1978, two psychologists named Philip Brickman and Dan Coates ran a study that should have made headline news. They tracked two groups of people, lottery winners and accident victims, who had been left paralyzed. The lottery winners had received windfalls in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. The paralysis victims had lost the use of their limbs. The researchers wanted to know how happy each group was. Not immediately after, but months later. The results were almost impossible to believe. The lottery winners were no happier than average. The paralysis victims were nearly as happy as they had been before the accident. Both groups had returned to something close to their original emotional baseline. It became known as the hedonic treadmill. No matter what happens to you, good or bad, your brain recalibrates. It adapts. Whatever you thought would finally make things feel right, it does. For a few weeks. Then the dial returns to wherever it started. This isn't a personal failing. It's a design feature. Your nervous system evolved not to settle into contentment, but to keep scanning for the next threat, the next resource, the next problem to solve. Satisfaction was never meant to be permanent. It was meant to be a signal. Brief, useful, then gone. So every time you hit a milestone and felt that hollow anticlimax, that wasn't ingratitude. That was your brain doing exactly what it was built to do. But knowing that doesn't explain the whole picture, because the hedonic treadmill tells us why achievement doesn't fill the void. It doesn't tell us why the void exists at all. Viktor Frankl survived 3 years in Nazi concentration camps. He lost his wife, his parents, his manuscript. In the ruins of that experience, he built a theory of human psychology that most comfortable people in comfortable countries never quite take seriously. Until they need to. Frankl argued that the deepest drive in a human being is not pleasure. It is not power. It is meaning. The will to find a reason. And when that reason disappears, not because your life is hard, but because modern life has quietly cleared away every structure that used to provide it. He had a name for what's left. He called it the existential vacuum. Not depression, not grief, something colder than both. A sense of inner emptiness that spreads when there is no why to organize your days around. Frankl noticed it most in his patients who had everything. Patients who came to him not because they were suffering, but because they were thriving. and couldn't understand why that felt like the wrong word. He wrote that the existential vacuum manifests primarily in boredom, not the boredom of having nothing to do, the boredom of doing things that feel like they should matter, and noticing that they don't. Sunday is its favorite day. Here is the part nobody says out loud. Modern society is extraordinarily good at one thing. It is extraordinarily good at producing people who function, people who show up, who meet deadlines, who keep the economy moving and the lights on. It optimizes for output, for productivity, for the kind of happiness that can be measured in consumer spending and GDP growth. What it was never designed to produce, what it may be structurally incapable of producing, is meaning. The sociologist Emil Durkheim had a word for the particular sickness of prosperous societies. He called it anomie. It's not poverty. It's not injustice, though both of those matter. Anomie is the dislocations that happens when a society changes faster than its people can build new frameworks of value. When the old anchors, religion, community, shared ritual, extended family, have been replaced by options, endless options, total individual freedom, and the weight of having to construct a self from scratch, alone, with no map. Durkheim noticed something that troubled him deeply. Suicide rates, his primary research subject, rose not in the most miserable conditions, but in the most prosperous ones, in countries with more wealth, among the educated, among those with more freedom, not less. Freedom without structure, he argued, is not liberation. It's vertigo. We have built the most individually free societies in human history. We have dissolved every tradition, every obligation, every given that used to tell people who they were. And we have handed people the result and called it choice. We have handed them the void and called it an opportunity. The philosopher Ernest Becker spent most of his career trying to answer a single question. Why do people do what they do? Why do they build empires, chase status, sacrifice decades of their lives for recognition, even when they know somewhere that none of it lasts? His answer, which won the Pulitzer Prize in 1974, the year he died, was this: everything is about death, not consciously, not literally, but underneath every human ambition, every need to matter, every frantic accumulation of achievement, there is a creature that knows it will cease to exist and cannot bear to sit with that knowledge. Becker called our careers, our legacies, our carefully curated identities, our immortality projects, ways of transcending the biological fact of our own ending, ways of insisting, through accomplishment, through reputation, through leaving something behind, that we mattered, that we were real, that the universe noticed us. The problem is not that immortality projects don't work. The problem is what happens when they succeed. When you finish the degree, land the promotion, build the thing you said you would build. For a brief moment, the noise quiets. And then, if you're paying attention, you notice something you've been running from. It's still there, underneath. The awareness didn't go anywhere. The void didn't get smaller. The achievement just covered it temporarily, the way furniture covers a stain. And when the excitement fades, you're alone with the stain again. Alone with the thing you can't name on a Sunday evening when all the tasks are done. And here is where it gets uncomfortable. Because now you have to ask the question most people spend their entire lives carefully avoiding. What are you actually running from? And where do you think you're going to end up? Robert Putnam spent years documenting something quiet and devastating that happened to American life in the second half of the 20th century. He measured civic participation, membership in community organizations, how often people had friends over for dinner, whether they knew their neighbors, how much they trusted strangers. Everything went down. Everything. Not dramatically, not all at once, but steadily, over decades, like water receding from a shoreline. He called his book Bowling Alone, and the image was deliberate. Americans had not stopped bowling. They had stopped bowling in leagues. They had stopped doing it together. By the time the U.S. Surgeon General issued a formal advisory in 2023, calling loneliness a public health epidemic, comparing its physical effects to smoking 15 cigarettes a day, none of it should have been a surprise. The data had been accumulating for half a century. The structure that used to hold people together had been quietly dismantled in the name of convenience, efficiency, mobility, and individual freedom. We traded the village for the apartment, the community for the network, the neighbor for the follower. And somewhere in that trade, so gradual that no single generation felt it happen all at once, we lost the thing that human beings require, not to be happy exactly, but to feel that their existence is witnessed. Frankl had 3 paths to meaning: work, love, and the confrontation with suffering. Modern life has given us better versions of work than any previous generation could imagine. It has given us suffering, stress, burnout, anxiety in abundance. But love, in the sense Frankl meant it, not romance, but genuine encounter, genuine witness, the experience of being truly known by another person. That we have allowed to become a luxury, something we schedule when we have time. Most of us do not have time. Here is where the mirror turns. Everything described above, the hedonic treadmill, the existential vacuum, the anomie, the immortality projects, the collapse of social fabric. It sounds like something happening to other people, something happening to society in the abstract, a cultural phenomenon you can observe from a safe analytical distance. But sit with it for a moment. The Sunday feeling. You've had it. Maybe you have it regularly and you've learned to manage it. You've learned to fill the space. Another episode, another task, another plan to look forward to, another achievement to pursue, another reason to stay in motion, because stillness is where the thing lives and you'd rather not meet it face to face. This is not a criticism, it's an observation, and it applies to most people reading this right now, not as an edge case, but as a baseline, not as a sign of weakness, but as the predictable result of being a meaning-seeking creature dropped into a system that was never designed to provide meaning. The question is not whether you've felt this. The question is what story you've been telling yourself about it. Maybe you've told yourself that you just need to achieve more, that the next thing will be the thing that finally makes it click, that you're close, that once the project is done, once the relationship is figured out, once you have more money or more time or more recognition, then you'll be able to rest. Then it will feel the way you always imagined it would feel. Or maybe, and this one is harder, you've started to suspect that there is no next thing, that the feeling is not a problem to be solved by getting further along the path, that it might in fact be a signal, a compass with something to say. Frankl wrote that suffering Even the quiet, undramatic suffering of a comfortable life that still somehow fails to satisfy is not meaningless. It is pointing at something. The question is whether you're willing to look at what it's pointing toward. There's a thought experiment that gets passed around in existential therapy circles. Imagine that someone handed you a complete transcript of your inner life. Every thought you had, every feeling you pushed away, every moment you numbed yourself with distraction because the alternative was to sit in the quiet and feel something you couldn't name. Now imagine reading it like you would read a stranger's diary. What would you see? A person running towards something, or a person running away, a person whose choices reflect what they actually value, or a person who inherited a set of values from a culture, a family, an algorithm, and has been executing them faithfully ever since, never quite pausing to ask if they belong to them? Irvin Yalom, one of the great existential psychiatrists of the last century, argued that most of what we call anxiety is not really about the things we say it's about. The work stress, the relationship tension, the financial worry. Those are the surface. Underneath, Yalom said, most anxiety is existential anxiety. The anxiety of a free creature that has to choose its own meaning in a world that offers no guarantees, moving toward a death it cannot prevent. The busyness is not incidental to this. The busyness is the strategy. Keep moving and you never have to face the four things Yalom said we spend our lives avoiding: death, freedom, isolation, and meaninglessness. Keep the calendar full and the questions stay quiet. Keep the notifications coming and the silence never lands. Until Sunday evening, when the tasks are done, when there's no one to perform for, when the apartment is clean and the food is in the fridge and there is nothing. Not a single external thing standing between you and the question your own life is quietly asking. Viktor Frankl wrote something that has stayed with me since the first time I read it. He said that meaning cannot be given, it cannot be inherited, it cannot be purchased or achieved or received as a reward for correct behavior. It can only be found by a specific person in a specific life, in the specific conditions of their actual existence. Not the life they imagined, not the life they were promised, the life they actually have, with its particular losses and its particular constraints and its particular narrow corridor of possibility. The emptiness is not a malfunction. It is an invitation, one that most people decline repeatedly for decades. It is the self asking to be taken seriously. It is the part of you that was never interested in the achievements, that was never consoled by the milestones, that has been sitting in the back of everything waiting to be asked one question. Not what have you done, not what do you have, but what do you actually want your time on earth to mean? You don't have to answer that tonight. Most people never do. They manage the emptiness. They find better and better ways to stay in motion. They get very good at not hearing the question. But the question does not go away. It is patient in a way that achievements are not. It is there on Sunday evening, and it will be there on every Sunday evening after this one. Not to punish you, not because something is wrong with you, because you are a creature built for meaning in a world that keeps selling you everything else. And somewhere underneath the noise, some part of you has always known the difference.